Hey, so today we're going to talk about 5 things that only happen with your true twin flame. So if you, for really real for sure, met your twin flame, these 5 things will happen or have happened. So let's get right into it. I'm going to list them off, the 5 signs, and then after I list them off, we'll discuss each one in detail. Sign number 1, the obsessive thinking, which is like a dead giveaway. And man, it's so weird. Oh my God. It's like it's happening to you. It's like it's happening to you. You can't turn it off. Your mind is going a bazillion trillion miles an hour about this person. It like hurts. It's so much thinking. It's like it's happening to you. Oh my God. I'll never forget that shit. Oh my God. Okay. Number 2, acting desperate. I was there, guys. I was there, acting desperate. You've got this deep sense of meaninglessness, and you'll do anything to make the pain stop. You're checking their social media 5, 10, 15, 30, 40, 50 times a day. Literally, you're checking their social media. You're talking to fucking everybody about it, and you'll do anything. You'll do anything. You're like in just emergency mode after, like, you know, what wasn't really that much different of a breakup in the 3D, right? This person might be actually special to you, right? But you've handled other breakups before and it was not like this. So what the fuck? Like, why is this breakup so insane? And these first 2 signs happened after the initial breakup with your person. Okay, sign number 3, what I call the weird energy shit. I call it the weird energy shit. We're going to talk about that. Number 4, there will be a spiritual awakening. There will be a spiritual awakening. And we're going to, when we get to that part, we're going to talk about things that you can do to sabotage that. But then I'll coach you on how to not sabotage that and then see what happens after you take certain steps that I'm going to suggest to you. See what happens after you take those steps. You should have some greater spiritual awakening that seems to just be happening, right? You don't have to like coax it, it just happens, right? Very interesting. Okay, sign number 5, experiences that I would call, or have, I should say, are called Satori. Satori, right? So you got the obsessive thinking, the acting desperate, the weird energy shit, the spiritual awakening, and Satori. Okay, now let's get into each one of the signs. And let me just say first, this is your spiritual awakening. And I know that sounds ridiculous right now for some of you because the suffering is so intense, but I've been through this for a long time. I met my twin flame. Well, I met her like 20 years ago, but nothing happened. And then we just went our separate ways. And then we reconnected on Facebook one day, like 15 years later. And that's when the twin flame journey started. And that was 5 years ago. And yeah, it was super. Oh, it was just, oh my God. Now, the beginning, there's like a little bubble phase. And for most people, it lasts anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks. If it was a different period of time for you, don't worry about it. But for most, that's what happens. And then they reject you, they run away, they pull away, they go, oh, I'm seeing somebody else, whatever. And then you crash like no other. Oh, and it's horrible. The suffering. Oh, the obsessive thinking and the acting desperate. and you have perhaps even like heartache in your heart. Now, if you have a history of like heart problems in your family, go see a doctor. I have to tell you that. I'm not a doctor. So just let's just make sure there's not something that's actually physically wrong with you. But on the other hand, no, heartache is a real thing. I even experienced that once when I was a teenager over this crush that I had, right? And it seems to physically hurt. And you really feel that with your twin flame. And the acting desperate and the obsessive thinking, you can't turn it off. You can't function. So we're kind of addressing the first two signs already. But yeah, man, it's like you can't even function. This is after the initial breakup that I'm talking about right now, the obsessive thinking and the acting desperate. But yeah, I couldn't do basic shit like eat. I would spend all day at work in this intense state of, it's like sorrow and like emergency all the time, like always like, what am I going to do about this? And I can't even focus on my damn job. And you can't do anything except this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. And it's like it's happening to you, the obsessive thinking. This is not a normal breakup at all. It's weird. Okay, so and I would get home from. Let me back up. Like at work, I'd be sitting at my desk, and every half hour or something, like 20 minutes even, every 20 minutes or whatever, I would have to get up and leave because I don't want everybody to see me breaking down and crying. I was like uncontrolled. Like oh shit, it's like you're gonna, how like when you're about to like sneeze and you're like, oh fuck, and you can't make it stop either. Maybe you do this, but you're like, nope, I'm gonna sneeze, here it comes. It was like that with the crying. Like I would just, oh, I gotta go. I just gotta get up, and I would go walk around or something. Oh my god, dude, go into the bathroom, and then I would get home, and I would just want to lay on the bed like a vegetable. I couldn't even watch TV. I just lost all interest in everything. You know, I barely could get out of bed and like brush my teeth and take a shower and go to work. It was horrible. And the obsessive thinking is so fucking weird. It's so fucking weird. It's just like a billion trillion miles an hour. And after about 3 months of this, one day it dawned on me, this is not normal behavior. I don't ordinarily act like this ever, especially not over a breakup with somebody that we just, and this was just my story. Maybe your story is a little different, but for me, think about it. For me, it was like we went on a couple of informal dates, and that was it. And then this is the way that I reacted. Guys, that's not normal. And I've never acted like that before or since. Okay. So the suffering is merely a breakdown of old ways. You could write that down. The suffering is merely a breakdown of old ways, guys. Remember, you are body, mind, soul, and guess what? So, this is why I've been such an effective coach for twin flames. This is why I'm a leader in this niche. 6,000 paying coaching students that I've helped to date. As of the date of this video, I've personally coached 6,000 people, guys. That's thousands of unions. How did I do it? Back to basics, right? You don't need the healing and the fixing your inner child and the clearing your chakras and the balancing your inner feminine and masculine and the fixing your past life karma with your twin flame and then yada, yada, yada. And I'm not saying that those things are necessarily bad in other situations, but this is not any other situation, guys. This is your soul. This is not like soul mates where it's my soul and your soul and we are mated. No, this is your soul. There's lots of differing information on the internet about the how and the why of twin flames. So, in other words, what do I do about my twin flame? Or why did I meet them? Right? What do I do? Or why did I meet them? Everybody's got a different opinion on the internet. There's so many. You don't even know who to listen to. But the one thing everybody says is that it's one soul in two bodies, or it's like the soul split, or it's the same soul vibration, or just something like that. That's kind of the messaging that you get about what twin flames are. The how and the why, you get a bunch of different stuff, but the what, everybody says it's one soul in two bodies. And that is absolutely true. This is your higher self in heaven, or what I call the energy part of the universe. It's the vacuum of space, right? The field, right? Dark matter, perhaps, dark energy, the Higgs field. It's the vacuum, right? It's so that's the energy part of the universe, or what people have called heaven, or the afterlife, which is really the before life. And then here's your past life in the year 1770. Here's your past life in the year 1880. There's you and your twin flame, simultaneous incarnations of the same soul. And this is your future reincarnation. And by the way, this teaching is as old as time itself. Spiritual teachers have been talking about this for a long time. And from the point of view of your higher self in heaven, all of these incarnations are all happening at the same time from the perspective of your higher self. Isn't that interesting? And guess what? Physics is finally catching up. Science is finally catching up to spiritualism. How about that? Because none other than Albert Einstein is the one who demonstrated that, yeah, from these higher planes of existence, time has no meaning. There really is no time. Everything is all happening at the same time. Isn't that something? Very, very interesting. So, this is you and your twin flame, simultaneous incarnations of the same soul. Again, this is old stuff, guys. This is why I've been able to help so many people. Back to basics, guys. Keep it back to basics. Body, mind, soul. So, the soul is consciousness, the mind is thoughts, emotions, and metaphysical energy. So, the suffering, the dark night of the soul, by the way, they've always called that ego death in ancient Zen spiritualism. Ego death. It's always been called that. Okay? So this weirdness, the obsessive thinking, the acting desperate, right? This suffering is merely the breakdown of old ways. The ego is melting away, the ego personality, right? The identity entity, you could call it. This is my representation of the soul again, right? It's like a little cloud in heaven or something. But, this is basically it. Body, mind, soul, the ego personality. It's a collection of retained thought and emotional patterns that you've been accumulating since you were a child. And even psychology says that, right? It's a bunch of old tape recordings. Now, it is also metaphysical energy that you're carrying around with you. And when your other self, your twin flame, they are another you, they are you in another body. When your other self, simultaneous incarnation, when they come in, they trigger that. There's a metaphysical activation. And it's like construction workers coming in with a jackhammer, breaking up all the concrete, making a bunch of noise, breaking a bunch of shit, tearing a bunch of shit down. The ego is dying, or at least a large chunk of it. And when things die, it fucking hurts, okay? It hurts to die, all right? And they even have a saying for that. In ancient Zen spiritualism, they go, you have to die before you die. But the question is, what is the you that is dying? Because you think you are a personality. You think you're your mind. You don't realize that. If I was to ask you, who are you beyond the body? I think almost all of you watching would go, oh, well, I'm a soul. Right, but what is that? And the thing is, even though you conceptually understand that you're a soul, first of all, what is that? Second of all, what everybody does is to act as you are the mind. Even though you conceptually know that you're something greater than that, you act as the mind, personality. I'm a mom, I'm a brother, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a teacher, I'm a truck driver, I'm a cook, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a whatever, I'm a liberal Democrat. I've been to these places, I've done these things. The personality, it's a story, a history, a collection of retained thought and emotional patterns, mental and emotional experiences, knowledge, information, opinions. It's your identity. And the thing is, the ego personality, I call it the identity entity. That's these lines around, it's like an aura, right? Around the body. It's an entity. It's not you. It's not life. It's not conscious. It's an entity. It's like artificial intelligence program. You, so we just talked about the mind, body, mind, soul, body, mind, soul. So we just talked about the mind. We just talked about the mind. Let's talk about the soul again. Let's talk about the soul again, and then we'll get to the other signs. The other signs are going to make more sense to you after we get through this little educational bit. But the real you is the soul, which is consciousness. And this is what's actually kind of useful, maybe, about the obsessive thinking. And again, the obsessive thinking and the desperation, that's happening because your mind is all shook up. So when that's breaking down to be washed away, the ego, personality, the identity entity, it's dying and going away. That's what ancient spiritual teachers meant when they said it's like you have to die before you die. But what's dying in quotation marks is the ego personality. So again, the suffering is merely a breakdown of old ways. Literally. Literally. Now, the obsessive thinking is very interesting, any thinking, because it will help you remember who you really are before you came into this body. You're the soul, your consciousness. Watch this. There's thoughts and emotions going on. And then, have you ever said to yourself, oh, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this emotion? Why am I thinking these thoughts? Or with the obsessive thinking, you can't fucking miss it. It's happening so damn much. Right? You're really asking yourself, like, what the fuck is with the obsessive thinking? Right? Who's asking? Who's asking? You notice thoughts and emotions going on. What is it that notices? Consciousness, the soul, the noticer. Consciousness, awareness, attention, noticing, the witness, seeing, observing, consciousness. That's the soul, guys. That's your twin flame. And the consciousness is increasing so drastically that it's like, you have this hard shell of the ego caked on energetically around you, like in my diagram here, right? And the consciousness coming from within you is increasing like a big bubble so rapidly that it takes that hard, energetic exterior of the ego mind and makes it go like a balloon, and then it goes, right? It takes time. It takes time. Now, another thing that happens is the weird energy shit. So this is sign number 3. The weird energy shit. And you could call it Kundalini. There's a lot of other different kinds of experiences that could be going on. So, some people have a very fast, like instantaneous, like kundalini rising kind of thing. And other people have like a slower, drawn out uh, type of energetic process. And I'll describe both of them first, and then I'll tell you why that's happening and what to do. So, the very intense Kundalini, and I'm kind of getting into what happens or what should happen if you were to stop focusing on the person and focus instead on your ascension. That's the key. That's the trick, right? The illusion is that the physical person is the goal, but you just got to take your focus off of them, stop making them the goal, and then instead focus on your ascension, which is increasing your consciousness. Doing things like meditating, mindfulness, slowing down thought. I always tell everybody, start reading this book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and don't just read it like it's another damn book. Live it. Live the power of. You want to get your twin flame back? This is what you got to do, guys. Right? Go to my true. Your twin flame is your soul. You got to do soul stuff, healing and clearing karma and balancing your inner feminine and masculine and clearing your chakras. That's all mind stuff. That's mental stuff. And I'm not saying that stuff is bad. That's just not what this journey is. Your twin flame is your soul. You got to do soul stuff, not mind stuff. The mind wants an outcome. The mind says, I have to become, I have to get to union. I'm telling you that you already is a soul. That's what you is. Like when you were to, like, if we were to ask, like, what is the self? What is that which I am, right? Well, you is the soul, consciousness. You already are your twin flame, guys. You don't need to get them to be with you. You literally are union. You. That's what you already are. This is a remembrance. So, first you remember that you are consciousness, and then after a time of going through this process of remembrance, then you also start to remember that you're a creator. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's get back to the weird energy shit. So, the weird energy shit, once you make your ascension your goal instead of the person, not number one, the person is going to want to talk to you all of a sudden. They're going to come back, right? It's like it works the opposite of the way you think it would, right? That's like one of the first things I teach my paid coaching students. It's a paradox. You're not doing anything about the person. You actually stop it. That's when they come back and they want to talk to you all of a sudden. Well, anyway, once you start doing that properly, that's when a lot of the weird energy shit starts. So you can have the very fast Kundalini activation where you feel it like in the base of your spine, like in your tailbone, and it travels all the way up your spine, all the way up to your crown. And you feel this really intense energy, and it doesn't hurt or anything like that. It's not bad. It's not going to hurt you. It actually feels really cool. But it's just really intense. And it's fast, and you feel it like moving up. And it can take an hour, it can take 2 hours, it can take 10 minutes. Like a very fast, very intense Kundalini activation. And you feel like fucking euphoric. It's absolute nirvana. Now, the other type that you can have is the kind I had, where it's like a slow, drawn out process. And the way that I would explain it is I had all of these energetic risings, like energy moving up my body still, but they were nowhere near as intense as your kind of classical Kundalini activation, right? They were nowhere near as intense. But I kept having like little miniature ones over and over and over again for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That kept happening. And then other times I felt like, I don't know how else to describe this, so just go with me here. But it was like there was like a big rubber band attached to my whole entire torso. and I could feel like energy in the sky. I know this sounds fucking weird, but honest to God, this is what happened. Like a big rubber band is attached to my whole torso, and it's like pulling me, like energy, like pulling and pulling at me. And it felt really cool. It wasn't scary or anything. None of this is scary. Now, this is all metaphysical, what's happening to you. But it starts with consciousness, which is spiritual. And whether you have the intense, quick Kundalini type or the long drawn out one like I had, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you're not, like, one isn't better than the other. I don't know why that happens. I was um, kind of a spiritual person to begin with, and I had like a little miniature spiritual awakening when I was like 19, but it was nothing like this. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. Like, I didn't need like an intense kundalini or something, but think of it like the kundalini. It's just metaphysical. That's all it is. It's the chakras and the energy body coming online. Think of it like if your foot falls asleep, for example, right? You know how your foot falls asleep and then you get up and you start walking around, and that's when you realize your foot fell asleep because it starts with being numb, and then you feel the needles and pins. Now, what I'm talking about, what I'm calling the weird energy shit, it doesn't hurt. I want to emphasize that. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel like needles and pins. I'm just using that as an analogy. The thing about your foot waking up. That's just an analogy. The weird energy shit that happens, it feels cool. It was really awesome. But just to make an analogy, like why that's happening, yeah, it's kind of like when your foot wakes up and you're like, you can't help but notice it. It's like really energetic. But this feels really cool, though. This feels really good. And that's what I call the weird energy shit. It's your astral body, the mind, emotions, chakras, metaphysical energy, the aura, right? That kind of that whole ball of wax, that whole mechanism, the mental astral component, body, astral body, soul, body, mind, soul, right? I'm kind of using mind and astral body interchangeably, right? But that component of the three-part triune being, body, mind, soul, the astral body, it's like coming online. It's waking up. And it's because of the drastic increase in consciousness. Your soul is consciousness, right? Go check out my True Twin Flame Teachings playlist, by the way. Go check it out, guys, on this channel. Free coaching from the world's leading twin flame coach. And read The Power of Now. There's lots of resources on there for you on that playlist. Also, okay, so the consciousness is like the fuel source of the three-part triune being machine, right? Consciousness, it's like the fuel source for the mind. The mind is like an engine. And consciousness, the soul, is like a gas tank. But it's like an endless gas tank, right? Because at the very core of your soul, you're connected directly to the source, just like everybody is. Well, anyway, now that we've done kind of all this setup, this will make the last two signs a lot easier for you to understand. The spiritual awakening, which is this deep knowing that you're changing in such a fundamental way. And if I was to ask you how it is you're changing or how you know that, you would say, I don't know. It's beyond concept. You know what it feels like? This knowing that I speak of. They call it intuition. Get this. I figured out the coolest trick ever to explain intuition. Knowing, right? So that you know what it feels like. It feels just like deja vu. Feels just like it. And it's because it's the exact same thing. It's just deja vu and intuition both present different information. Deja vu is information about the present because it's this weird, eerie knowing. How do I know I've done this before? Now, that's the mind. The mind is what's asking that question. The mind is going to doubt. Remember, body, mind, soul. But there's still the knowing. Those are two different things. There's the knowing that I've done this before. What the hell? Deja vu, right? It's this weird, eerie knowing that I've done this before. And there's the mental process of the questions. How do I know I've done this before? Blah, 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 blah. Those are two things, guys, because they're coming from two places. Still, the knowing remains, and it's information about the present. Now, intuition is information about the future, information about somebody else, or information about something maybe that's true for you, right? Stuff like that. But they're really both kind of the same thing. They're both coming from your higher self, your soul, which is consciousness. But both deja vu and intuition, they feel the same. They both have a characteristic of feeling. Like, what does the experience feel like? They both have that kind of characteristic of feeling. They are identical in that way. It's just the information is different for both. Somebody just decided for some reason that for deja vu, we're going to give it a special name, is all. But they're really they're the same thing. They're coming from your soul. Deja vu is your soul just telling you that you're where you're supposed to be. And your soul, again, remember the soul in heaven is beyond time. So you get this information telling you that I've done this before because you have. Your future, everything you're going to do in the future, even in this lifetime, your higher self is already experiencing that stuff. And if you have a question about like free will versus destiny, now that I've opened up that can of worms, you can go watch my free coaching video called The Science of Destiny, where I explain that it's both free will and destiny. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Go watch that video. New World All-Star, The Science of Destiny. It'll blow your mind. Now, sign number 5, Satori. So, if you know what intuition feels like, this strange, deep sense, it's beyond the mental. Satori is a very, very intense experience of nirvana, of bliss that is beyond the mental. It's deep bliss. It's like all thought and emotion cease. It's like the mind just completely yields for a time, and you feel deeply connected to everything. It's called Satori. And again, these last 3 signs ordinarily start to happen when you start to make your ascension the focus instead of the person. So get started, guys. Go watch my free coaching videos or sign up for my paid coaching. Do something. Do something about your situation, guys. You are your twin flame. You absolutely can do something about it. So get started, my friends. I hope you found this video very, very helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week. See you next time.